the expensive co-production with Amblin, however, and as time passed, the truth finally emerged. Back in 1989, British-born American TV executive Philip Siegel had approached the BBC literally a few weeks before the axe fell on a programme he fondly remembered watching on his grandfather's knee. This was to be the beginning of his 7-year struggle to take up the reins of Doctor Who. At the time, the BBC executives, loathing Doctor Who in private, if not public, were lukewarm to the prospect of a co-production with an American studio. They felt the show needed at least a long rest before any resurrection could be considered. Siegel was passionate about the possibility of reinvigorating the show, however, and didn't let his dreams die there and then. Rather, he tenaciously maintained contact with the BBC, badgering the powers that be with his proposals each time there was a change of leadership. It was after Siegel had moved from Columbia Studios to Amblin, and the BBC had promoted documentary maker Alan Yentop to the position of controller of BBC One, when the ball really started rolling. Unlike his predecessors, Yentop recognised the potential value of Doctor Who, and science fiction in general. He had been responsible for acquiring Star Trek The Next Generation for the BBC. With Siegel now working ostensibly under the auspices of Steven Spielberg at Amblin, the combination of Yentop's sympathy for the programme and the door-opening power inherent in the name of the most successful filmmaker in the world created a perfect storm and provided a good reason for all involved to be optimistic about the series coming back. It wasn't going to prove that easy, however, as complicated negotiations over casting, financial contributions and rights between the BBC and Amblin dragged out the process for even longer. By the start of 1994, with all the other official spin-off productions done and dusted or cancelled, the negotiations finally resulted in a deal, and Siegel secured the position of the new producer of Doctor Who. Now the real difficulties and dilemmas began. With Amblin funded primarily by Universal Pictures due to their long association with Spielberg, they wanted a staff writer to be involved in the development of the proposed new series, and put forward John Leekley, who had penned several television shows and TV movies, and was interested in the property. Feeling that the writer should be British, Siegel had his misgivings, but the need to put something together for the all-important pitch season to television networks meant that he enlisted Leekley's services to produce a series Bible, which would lay out the premise, narrative background, key characters, and possible storylines for executives to consider. The resultant Bible is what most fans would consider a nightmarish heresy and a bastardization of the classic show with American network television tropes. It was an expensive leather-bound folly which essentially rebooted the programme, borrowing characters, iconography, and even storylines willy-nilly from the 26-year epic that preceded it. The fact that the intellectual property rights to many of the characters and storylines that Leekley chose to plagiarise did not lay with the BBC means that it's for the best that this rehash never saw the light of day. In brief, Leekley's reboot would have revolved around the political intrigue of Gallifrey, with the death of Lord President Barusa ushering in a new regime under the domination of his grandson, the Master. Meanwhile, the Doctor uncovers the secret scrolls of Rassilon, setting him on a quest to find answers as to how to lead his people out of the darkness. Before death, Barusa reveals to the Doctor that he is in fact Barusa's grandson, and therefore half-brother to the evil Master. With Barusa's spirit now inhabiting a stolen TARDIS, the Doctor begins his quest to seek out his long-lost father, the great time explorer Ulysses, who conceived him long ago in a union with a woman from the blue planet Earth. During the course of their adventures, the Doctor and his grandfather's ghost would encounter the Daleks, genetically modified cyborgs that take the form of bionic spiders employed by the Master, the vain and nomadic Scythes, slash and burn marauders from the planet Mondas, Yeti, who turn out to be a lost tribe of Neanderthals living in the Himalayas when Sir Edmund Hillary makes his expedition to the summit of Everest, and so on, and so on. Leekley's Bible stands as a perfect example of what not to do with the show. Had it gone into production, the result would have been an expensive but ultimately derivative parody of what Doctor Who really is, with most of the iconography in place, but none of the soul, its uniqueness pushed aside in favour of a paint-by-numbers mythological narrative structure and cliched network television motifs. And who on earth thought this was a good look for the Daleks?